Hello Magis, welcome to the Legend of Japan. We're going to talk about something that I'm sure you have all seen before. It's one of Japan's most famous symbols, the cherry tree, or sakura as they call it. So I'm going to tell you a legend about how this cherry tree became so famous. So the story goes like this. A long time ago in Japan, there were a lot of different wars. Every city, every town, everywhere you go would be having a different war, a conflict among people. And it would be a really sad scenery. But there was one place in all of Japan that nobody dared to touch. It was a forest. The most beautiful forest you can imagine. It was filled with trees, filled with flowers, and with plants and animals and insects and beautiful sounds, and no soldier would dare to go to that forest because if war started in that forest, the forest would burn down and disappear. So they respected this beautiful place in Japan. Every single tree had flowers, every single tree was beautiful except for one. There was a really lonely tree in this forest called Yohiro. It had no flowers, no leaves, no plants around it, no animals would visit him, and no insects would come near. So he was really lonely. He didn't know company, he didn't know conversation, he had no friends, and he was really sad. Not once in his life he had a flower. So one fairy from the forest decided to go to him and talk to him. So the fairy, told Yohiro, I am going to give you an opportunity to live life and to be happy because I don't want you to be lonely and I don't want you to be sad. So I am going to put a spell on you that will last 20 years. During these 20 years, you will be able to transform between tree and human, and you can go travel the world and you can go see the good things about humanity, and you can go feel the good feelings that humans have so that you can be happy. Yohiro, which was a really lonely tree, decided to accept this spell, this proposal, and that moment he transformed into a human being and started to travel Japan. But let's remember that Japan had a lot of wars. So everywhere he'd go, he would find a different war. Every town he would visit, he would find a different war. Everything would be violent, everything would be sadness, everything would be hatred, a lot of negative feelings. So he would be scared and he would go back and transform himself into a tree again and just stay like a tree for a while until he decided that he wanted to go travel again. So he would turn into a human and travel Japan again. But what would happen is that he would find more and more wars. Once again, he would find a different war in a town filled with anger, filled with jealous people, filled with sadness and with loneliness. So he would go back again and turn himself into a tree. So he would stay like a tree for a while, and this would happen 3 or 4 times along these 20 years until almost at the end of his 20 years, he met a beautiful woman standing next to a river. He would go to her and he would talk to her and he would be really nice to this woman. This woman's name was Sakura. You might know this name. So they talked for a while and they became friends. And then Yohiro would take Sakura's water and would help her travel and take this water to her house. After a while, they would start talking about the good things in life. They would start talking about how none of them liked war, about how they enjoyed good books, and they would become friends. And after a while, Yohiro and Sakura started meeting every single day in the afternoon to talk about poems, to talk about good books, to talk about songs, to talk about all of the beautiful things that they enjoyed in life. And they would become really close friends. But Yohiro knew that his 20 years spell was about to come to an end. So one day he decided to come to Sakura and talk to her and tell her everything about his past. He told Sakura that he was not a real human, but that he was actually a tree with a spell, that he wanted to feel real love, and that he had found real love. And he told Sakura that he loved her. And Sakura was so surprised to hear this that she just became silent. And Yohiro didn't know what to do, so he thought that Sakura was rejecting him, and then Yohiro would become really sad and go back to the forest and turn into a tree again, and he would wait for this 20 years to pass, and he would continue being a tree and never have a single flower. He was just so certain that Sakura wouldn't go back to him, but one day, before the 20 years passed, Sakura came back to the forest and she hugged Yohiro. One day before the 20 years were over, and the fairy that cast the spell on Yohiro went to them and talked to Sakura and told her, Sakura, I am going to give you two options. Option number one, you can stay being a human. Or you can take option number two, you can become a tree with Yohiro. You can both mix and blend in together and grow as a tree together. So Sakura, being certain that she loved Yohiro, she said, I want to blend with Yohiro and become a tree. And that moment, Yohiro and Sakura were really happy, so happy that Yohiro started blooming the most beautiful flowers you could ever see on a tree. The cherry tree flowers, the cherry blossom, this amazing tree that you can find in Japan if you go in the spring, became a symbol of the Japanese culture. So, my young Amagis, I encourage you to go to Japan and look at the cherry trees and enjoy this beautiful scenery, because it is so beautiful that the Japanese people, they didn't make one celebration or two, they destined 5 different festivals to celebrate the beauty of the cherry blossom, the beauty of the cherry tree. So I hope you enjoyed this amazing legend of love and tragedy and the fairies and the trees, and about the cherry tree that is one of the most famous symbols in Japan. It is so famous that the cherry tree is actually the symbol of the Japanese samurai. So I hope that you enjoyed this legend, and let's go on with this trip.